Hello everyone, in this video we are going to discuss 5 critical chess traps that you must know in Sicilian Defense, whether you are playing the Sicilian Defense with the black pieces or if you are facing the Sicilian Defense with the white pieces. It is going to be a very critical video in order to improve your chess skills and level and in order to win some serious chess games. So without any further ado, let's quickly jump right into the video. Trap number 1, we are playing with the white pieces and we start the game with 1 e4. Our opponent replies with c5, which is also known as the Sicilian Defense, and we play the move knight to f3. We have d6, we play the move d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3. A very common way to play the Sicilian Defense. From here, everything is very common. After knight c3, our opponent plays the a6 variation, which is also known as the knight of variation. After playing the move a6, we play the move bishop to g5. And our idea is to capture the knight on f6 and try to ruin black's pawn structure. After bishop g5, black plays the move e6 in order to protect the black knight with the queen. After e6, we play the move f4, trying to expand on the king side and trying to set some nasty threats like pushing the pawn to e5. So after f4, black plays the move knight d7 in order to stop the move e5. After knight d7, we play the move bishop to c4, simply developing our bishop. And here, black plays the normal move like b5, trying to push the pawn, hit the bishop, and try to develop the bishop on the next move. But after b5, congratulations, here comes our trap, bishop into e6. Capturing the pawn, you have to capture the bishop or else we are a pawn up and a winning position. Knight into e6. And after knight into e6, the queen is attacked, so one of the most natural moves is to play the move queen b6. You can't play the move queen e7 because after knight c7 you lose the rook. So yeah, queen b6, putting the queen on an open diagonal. And after queen b6, we play the move knight to d5. After knight g5, we are hitting the queen and we are also threatening to play the move knight to c7. So black is kind of forced to capture the knight over here and we capture the knight with the queen. We are hitting the rook. So here, black can play a move like queen e3 check, but it's not going to work after king f1, where the rook is hanging. And if you try to move the rook, I'm already threatening mate in 1. So you can't really go for this particular variation of giving a check to e3. So after queen to d5, black plays the move like bishop to b7, which is the most natural move, hitting the queen. And after bishop b7, we play the move knight to c7 check. Black is forced to capture the knight or else everything is pretty much covered. So queen into c7, and now can you find the only move, or you can say like the most easiest way to checkmate black? Queen to e6 check. Black is forced to put the bishop in between. We capture the bishop and it's mate. So this was the trap number 1, how you can simply checkmate your opponent by playing against the Sicilian Defense. So yeah, this was the trap number 1. So now let's move on to the trap number 2. Coming to the trap number 2, we are playing with the white pieces and we start the game with 1 e4. Our opponent replies with c5, we play the move knight f3, knight to c6 and we play the move d4. Pawn takes, knight f6, knight c3 and our opponent plays the move g6, the hyper accelerated dragon. After g6, we capture the knight, b into c6 and we push the pawn to e5. After e5, black is having many options to continue the game, to knight g8, knight h5 or knight d5. Knight g8 is not a good move because after bishop c4, the knight is already passive and every piece of black are still in the last rank, whereas white is pretty much happy in this position and I think white is already better. If knight to h5, we are having a good sample line to continue the game after bishop c4, developing the bishop g7, queen f3, short castle, and after g4, the knight is simply trapped and we are going to win the piece and eventually the game. So knight to d5 is the only move which makes some sense. After knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes, rook to b8, trying to get some counterplay by playing the move bishop b7. We have a very strong move, e6, our very strong move. Threatening mate in 1, so black is having 2 options to capture the pawn, but it doesn't really matter. And after pawn f takes, we play the move queen e5. Either rook is going to fall and we are going to win the game. And if black captures the d pawn, still it's the same trick and we win the game by capturing a rook. So this was the trap number 2 you must know whenever you are facing some hyper accelerated dragon against if you're playing with white pieces and you're facing hyper-accelerated dragon. So this was the trap number 2, so now let's move on to the trap number 3. Coming to the trap number 3, we are playing with the white pieces and we start the game with 1 e4. Our opponent plays the move c5, knight to f3, d6, g4, takes, knight to f6, knight c3, and our opponent plays the move g6. And after g6, we have the dragon, Sicilian dragon. After g6, we play the move f4. After f4, we are expanding on the king side, that's our idea. e5 can be sometimes a possibility in the future, or even f5. After f4, our opponent plays the move bishop to g7. We push the pawn to e5, and here d into e5, f into e5, knight to g4. After knight g4, black is preparing to capture the pawn on e5. We play the move bishop to b5 check. And after bishop b5 check, black is having 1, 2, and 3, and 4 options in the position to continue the game. If bishop to d7, which is the main move, we can simply capture the knight, and the bishop cannot capture the queen because the bishop is pinned, and we have won a piece and eventually the game. So if black plays the move knight to d7, we have the move queen into g4, and we again win a piece. If knight to c6, we can simply capture the knight, capture the pawn, we are a pawn up, bishop d7 would be the move, we can even capture that exchange, and we are winning the game. So king to f8, which is the move that comes to in any player mind, moving the king. But after king f8, it's completely winning for us, because here comes the move knight to e6 check, and also hitting the queen. So if you try to, it doesn't matter how you capture the knight, because we are anyways going to capture the queen and going to mate black king. So this was the trap number 3 you must know whenever you are facing Sicilian dragon. So yeah, so now let's move on to the trap number 4. So now coming to the trap number 4, we are playing with the black pieces, and our opponent starts the game with 1 e4. We play the move c5, knight f3, a6, d4, takes, knight to f6. After knight f6, if our opponent pushes the pawn, try to capture the knight, we can already play the move queen f5 check, and also winning the pawn at the same time, and we are going to win the game. So e4 is not a good move, so knight c3, we play the move e5 hitting the knight, knight goes back, and we play the move bishop to b4, developing the bishop and putting pressure on the knight, and our idea is to simply capture the pawn on e4 because the knight is simply pinned. Our opponent plays the move bishop d3 in order to defend the pawn on e4. We now play the move d5, a very strong move trying to open up the position. After d5, ed5, which is the most natural way to play, or else g4 is a very strong move, even capturing is a very strong move. You have to capture, knight takes, bishop d2, and we can simply capture the knight and come back with the bishop, and the position is already good for black. The reason is quite simple. White's pawn structure is simply extremely bad compared to black's harmonious pawn structure, and both sides are having equal material and nothing is happening. So it's much easier to play with the black pieces, and white is having long-term issues with the isolated pawns, which can harm in the future. So this is how you can play in this trap number 4. So this was the trap number 4. So now let's move on to the final trap of the day, the trap number 5. So coming to the trap number 5, we are playing with the black pieces, and our opponent starts the game with 1 e4. We play the move c5, knight f3, e6, d4, takes, a6, the Khan variation, knight c3, queen c7. The queen c7 is a very subtle move that you must know in this position. After queen c7, our opponent plays the move bishop e3, which is a very normal way to continue the game. White's idea is to play the move queen d2, f3, long castle, g4, h4, and try to expand on the king side and do a king side attack whenever black shot castles. So after bishop b3, that's exactly what we wanted. We play the move bishop to b4. And our idea is already to capture the knight on c3. A normal way to play is to play the move queen to d2, defending the knight. We play the move knight f6, already idea is to capture the pawn. For example, if a3, we can already capture the pawn because the knight cannot capture the knight because the queen is hanging. And we are already hitting the queen. So a3 is not a good move. So here the best move is to play the move f3 in order to defend the pawn on e4. We play the move d5, a very strong move. If white captures the pawn, we capture the pawn, hitting this knight. Knight goes back, trying to defend the knight, and we capture the bishop, queen takes, and the position is already very pleasant for black. Black can simply play the move bishop c5, taking control of the dark squares, and black is very healthy in this position. So this is a one way to play. So if after d5, knight pawn takes leads to a bad position. So if white tries to play a move like bishop to d3, like simply protecting the pawn, we simply push the pawn to e5. Knight moves, and we even push the pawn to d4, winning a piece and eventually the game. So this was the critical fifth trap you must know whenever you are facing or playing the Sicilian defense. So I hope that these 5 traps must have helped you to improve your chess level skills, because like majority of the players are playing this particular opening, the Sicilian defense. So you must know these important critical chess traps, these 5 critical chess traps. So I hope that this video might have helped you to improve your games. If it did, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel. I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching OneShot Chess.